Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. Appreciate it. Happy to be here, and Feathr is excited to be a sponsor and supporter of the Responsive Nonprofit Summit. So thank you to Virtuous for putting on such a great event. So hopefully you were all here in the right session. This is Digital Marketing is a Fundraiser's Best Friend. I'm going to make hopefully the case to some of you here of why digital marketing is more important than ever and how it is fully aligned with both traditional development efforts as well as more modern and online fundraising efforts. Just a tiny bit about myself to start off. So like I said, like Jason said, I'm the co-founder and chief revenue officer over at Feathr. One quick correction though, we're not a marketing agency. We are a marketing software platform. So we make marketing solutions for marketing teams, communications teams at nonprofits to use. Fun fact about myself and the source of this photo here, when I had a little bit longer hair, I recently did a regional version of Dancing with the Stars. It was a fundraiser for a local ballet company, and they picked various people across the local community to be paired with the ballet professional dancers, and it was very much treated with a bunch of hoopla, and we had a competition style. There were even judges, and we had to perform. But this is the promo photo from my Dancing with the Stars adventure. So fun times. I did salsa. Anybody here in the audience dance salsa? It was a great time. All right, so I'm going to expose my priors here before jumping into the content. So again, co-founder of a company that calls itself the Nonprofit Marketing Platform. I believe that marketing is a high leverage opportunity for our sector to have greater impact, to improve our fundraising efficacy, to drive more engagement and awareness and action in the population at large, to drive more engagement with our organizations, to drive more support, to drive more volunteerism, and ultimately, as is the main focus of today, to drive more donations. And so that's clearly my bias here, is that marketing is a force multiplier for good. And hopefully by the end of this, a few more of you in the audience will agree the same. So something we say a lot over here at Feathr is that marketing is good with a capital G. And we say that because my experience, you can agree or disagree, would love to see in the chat what your organization's view on this is. But my observation is there's some aversion amongst many boards, some senior leadership in the nonprofit sector, there's some aversion to the word marketing, to investing in marketing, to embracing marketing as a first-class citizen, so to speak, of your organization. And so I'm here to make the case again that marketing is a good thing, and that this is intentionally a pun, obviously, that marketing is good because your organization is doing such good work, right? You are good for the world, for society. You're doing good things in the community. Marketing is just an enabler of that. It's just a multiplier of that. It's just a furthering of the good work and of the mission you're doing. It's not some separate thing. It is part and parcel. So to break down maybe a couple of those common aversions, and again, if you see anything on this list that resonates with you, or if you see one that's not on the list from your organization, please chime in. One of the most common ones obviously would be cost, right? This is, where do we put our dollars? How do we have the highest impact with our dollars? Particularly, there's the whole overhead myth that many of us fall victim to. Hopefully, all of us here being in fundraising are here to push back against the overhead myth, and marketing very much in the same there. But understand that there is aversion in relation to limited dollars. How do I spend them? Another common form of aversion is believing that marketing is too commercial, right? This is something that businesses do. This is something people do that are trying to sell something, right? This is trying to push a very specific, product or something on people. And hey, we don't do that here, right? We're a social good organization. We're a nonprofit. We're trying to impact our community. We're not commercial, and marketing, that's something that's too commercial for us, right? So sometimes that's the form of the aversion. Another one you see is humility, and sometimes that's genuine humility of like, hey, I don't want to bother people. I don't think people really want to hear from us too much, or we don't want to overstep, or we don't want to bug people, right? Sometimes this is a little bit of a humble brag, where it's like, hey, we don't need to do this. Our good work speaks for itself. We don't actually need to put effort into pushing that message further. Or maybe it's something more like, we're the best kept secret. I hate hearing that. As a marketing person, I hate when I hear we are the best kept secret of our community. Far too often is that phrase thrown around. But some form of humility, whether genuine or otherwise, tends to be another flavor of aversion to investing in marketing to doing marketing or promotional activities. Last one here is concern is that it's invasive, and maybe particularly digital marketing falls into this bucket where there's a little bit of discomfort, right? And sometimes that's just a lack of familiarity and understanding. And sometimes it's a genuine like, oh, is this invasive? You know, I'm getting into people's inboxes, or am I tracking people? You know, with the digital stuff, is there a privacy concern? You know, maybe in recent years when, you know, Facebook and Meta got a little bit of a bad rap, and some other organizations as well for, you know, the forms of digital advertising and digital marketing that are being thrown around. And there's some, you know, sense of, hey, we're the good folks here. That stuff is a little bit questionable. We want to distance ourselves from anything that feels a little bit questionable or a little bit invasive or anything to do with privacy, right? So maybe that's another nature of aversion that we might often see. So let me know if you encounter any of these within your organization. I'm going to try to address these now one by one of what, last thing I'd say here is the combination of all these things is that there's a view that marketing is transactional. That's not the relationship you're trying to have, perhaps, with your supporters, whether financial or otherwise. You don't want to have a transactional relationship, and that's where marketing fits in. All this adds up to. But my case is that good marketing, capital G, you know, good causes doing effective marketing and engagement of their audiences. So good marketing would be viewed as an investment. This is something that we expect to get return from. We know we will get return from. This isn't a cost. This isn't a loss. This is something that is going to drive a multiplicity of benefits. We're going to get return in a number of different ways from this. As far as the too commercial, I reframe that as this is the mission, right? We need to make more people aware of our mission. We need to engage more people around the work we're doing in support of the mission, right? So marketing is just furthering of the mission. It's making sure more people know about your great organization, about the problems that exist, about the problems you're trying to solve, right? So this isn't something commercial. This is a furthering of the mission. On the humility side, again, my counter to that would be, isn't it more important that we drive more impact, right? You know, our humility may in fact be sabotaging our ability to do more, to drive more impact on the very mission that we exist to serve. So driving more results, whether that's in the forms of greater donations to fund further programming, is it in the form of more volunteerism or support and community engagement, more attendance, is it more actually reaching more of the people who our programs and services are designed to serve? We just need to get those in front of them, make them aware that our programs and that our services exist for them, right? So marketing can drive more impact, and that's far more important, I would say, than protecting the sense of humility or being too worried about stepping on toes. And the last thing with respect to invasive is good marketing is exciting to receive on the other end, right? Forming a genuine connection, feeling like you are part of the community of whatever organization is marketing to you, right? And you can think of this also in respect to brands. If you think of brands that you really like, you know, brands that have been very successful at creating fans, right? People who are super fans of a given brand, they want to engage, they want to follow that brand. They love the content, they love the communication in the marketing coming out of that brand because they feel part of the community, right? And similarly, if someone's a supporter of your organization, your marketing should make them feel connected to you, like they are part of the community. And good marketing is not invasive at all. It's actually very positive as a gift to give to the people who are supporting to you. Now they get to feel more part of something by being more engaged, by being more part of the community you're creating around your organization. So rather than transactional, you know, the goal with good marketing is to form something that's transformational in the way that your organization does its work. Marketing can be this transformational force multiplier for the work you're doing. All right, so good marketing should make fundraising easier now and in the future. If we're doing this well, we are making fundraising easier now and in the future. I'll come back to this phrase later, but this is the crux of the case for why I believe that marketing and fundraising should be best friends. And because I started a marketing company called Feathr, we'll say that the owl, the little quirky owl here, is marketing, and the beautiful dog is fundraising here. But this is why marketing and fundraising should be best friends. All right, so I'm going to now go through what I see as a number of like key challenges or maybe major headwinds pushing against traditional development efforts, some kind of sea changes that are happening around the nonprofit sector as a whole, and particularly that are affecting traditional development efforts, and why marketing, and in particular digital marketing, but why marketing can be the answer to this. So I'm going to start with something that seems fairly obvious, but it's really striking when you look at the numbers behind it. People spend a lot of time and money online today in the great year of 2024. So again, something that seems obvious, but when you really look at the numbers, this is staggering. So here's one stat from eMarketer, which is that the average US adult spends 8 hours and 14 minutes per day. This is in 2022 on digital media. And you can see the year-over-year increase. And so one thing that's interesting with this is that, and if this went further back in time, you would see the step up. It was something like, I think it was 6 hours and 51 minutes in 2019 from this same source, from their same research. And it went up by a full hour in 2020. And that might not have been surprising because 2020, pandemic, lockdown, everybody suddenly was, shelter in place, and the whole world shifted to be more online, more work from home, more online commerce and so forth, right? I think the most interesting thing here is that the data has shown that that did not prove to be temporary. So it was an acceleration, it was a leap up from pre-pandemic, which was already obviously going up and up every passing year for the last decade, but there was a leap up from 19 to 20, and then it stayed elevated and has actually continued to rise incrementally with each passing year. So this is not a pandemic fluke. This was something that pandemic accelerated and led to permanent changes in our behavior collectively here. And about 8 hours and 14 minutes. I mean, that is a crazy number. That was a 2022 number. So from this stat, just to be clear with this chart here, that was the actual from 22, and this 23 and 24 were projections at that time. So I try to find more recent information for 23. This organization didn't publish an updated one. However, I found another stat, and they calculate it a slightly different way. So this group here, this number is digital media. And so I'm going to flip to a different research report that removed connected TV and specifically focused on how much time is spent on smartphones, laptops, and tablets. You can see how that broke out here. So this was 7 hours and 3 minutes specifically on smartphones, tablets, and computers. So this is removing connected TV devices, whereas the previous number included that. And again, this is a different group, different methodology. 7 hours and 3 minutes per day, which again, and this was an increase over last year. So this has steadily ticked up the past few years as well. So this was a January 2024 report, as recent as I could find. And look, different methodologies, whether it's 7 hours, whether 8 hours, it's a lot of time. That is a lot of time every single day to be spending online, to be spending on digital media every single day. And again, both show the same trend, which is this has stayed elevated and continued to inch up since the pandemic. It did not revert back to any type of pre-pandemic levels afterwards. So people are spending a ton of time online right now. And people means donors, current and prospective donors are spending a ton of time online. And it's not just time, it's also money. So this is a chart that shows total e-commerce sales in the United States. This is from the US government data. This is from the Department of Commerce, I believe. And you can see, in the past 5 years, this has doubled, a pretty significant increase. And the same pattern as with the time, there was a big jump up and then it's continued to climb. It was not a fluke. It has continued to stay elevated and actually further increase. So an acceleration of behavior that has further along and more than quadrupled in the past 10 years. And this is in total dollars, but in case anyone wants to double check and make sure the same trend is true, it is with respect to percentage of sales. So this percentage here, this is showing of total retail sales, how much comes from e-commerce. And same, the percentage of total sales coming from online purchases has continued to climb. And similarly, it's gone up very dramatically. In this case, about a 50% increase in the past 5 years and almost tripling since 2010. So people are spending a lot more time and money online than ever before. Good marketing engages people where they are, and where they are is online. This means we need to be doing more digital marketing. We need to be improving our digital fundraising experience. We need to be investing more in our online presence as organizations, because this is where people are spending their time, and this is where people are spending their money increasingly with each passing year. More and more time, more and more money spent online. Good marketing engages people where they are. So we got to do some more digital marketing. All right, I'm going to keep rolling here. The next major point, and much has been made of this. I'm sure everyone has seen some of these stats, but I'm going to reiterate them quickly, is that donor participation appears to be declining quite significantly. And so the main stat for this, as many people are familiar, comes from the Giving USA report, which showed that fewer than half of American households in 2022 contributed to charity in any shape or form, financially. Let me make that note, financially. And this is down from, in 2000, it was more than 2/3. So in the last 20 years or so, we've gone from 2/3 participation in charitable giving to just shy of half participation in charitable giving. That's a pretty significant drop-off in a pretty short amount of time. And yes, the accompanying stat of this is, average gift size has gone up, and total amount of giving has largely gone up, with some year-to-year minor fluctuations, but broadly speaking, there hasn't been a precipitous drop-off of this magnitude by any means in total giving. It's largely grown. However, in terms of people and households participating, very significant decrease. If anyone here in the audience is from Canada, very similar trend taking place. The stat here is calculated slightly differently. This is specifically of people who reported it on tax returns, so it shows a smaller overall number, but same trend. Percentage of tax filers in Canada who donate to registered charities has been plummeting, a steady decline over the last 20 years as well. So fewer people, fewer households donating to charity, and that's continuous decline. This is a fairly significant challenge. What that means to me is a couple of things. So one is that, this is maybe the optimistic marketing spin on this, but that's a ton of green field, right? So there's a lot of people now who maybe used to give or maybe have never given at all. But either way, it's not competition in this case with other organizations for those dollars. There's just a ton of greenfield or blue ocean, however you want to say it, opportunity of people and households who are not currently giving at all. Good marketing can expand the pie. Effective marketing of our good organizations and causes can reach these net new people who have never contributed to charity before, as well as re-engage people who used to donate to charity at all and are not at all right now. But we need to go to them. We need to change some minds here. And changing minds, that requires marketing. Clearly there are some amount of people, a lot of people, right? Millions of people in the United States who will donate to charity every year. They will make contributions to nonprofits every year. But a heck of a lot more would if we put some effort into engaging them and nurturing them and convincing them. And there's just not a ton of that happening sector-wide right now, at least proportionally. I can get into the proportional stats in a couple minutes. But there's an opportunity here where good marketing can expand the pie of people and households who are donating to charity. That's a greenfield opportunity of people who are not at all, and we just need to find them, reach them, engage them, make them aware, make them bought in, make them care, nurture them, and ultimately incite action, drive them to participate. It's a marketing opportunity if I ever saw one. So the intersection of those first two trends, the next generations of donors are the most digital. So if you think about that, 7 or 8 hours per day per US adult online, that's the average. That means, we're talking about the next generations of who will be the prime giving cohorts in the coming years and decades. With each passing generation, more time is spent online, right? So, Gen X and Boomers probably on the below that average number, and then millennials above that average number, Gen Z even more so. So with each passing generation, this digital adoption of both where, amount of percentage of income that's spent through e-commerce, as well as time spent online continues to increase. So when we're thinking about expanding the pie, if we're thinking about reaching net new donors, thinking about people who we are not currently contributing now, mostly thinking about cultivating next generations of potential donors. These are the ones who are the most digital, which just furthers the need for digital marketing in particular. All right, so as corollary to the idea that with this declining participation, we are not in competition with each other. We're in competition, I would contend, with consumerism. Charitable giving competes with consumerism, competes with alternative uses of discretionary spending. We, to some degree, compete with eating out at restaurants more, or with going to concerts and buying tickets, right? Compete with certain subscriptions, right, that I might be adding on. Compete with buying certain nice-to-have products, new outfits, whatever it might be, right? We are in competition with consumerism. And the data would suggest that we are losing that competition. This is just another take on the decline in charitable giving participation, but this one is showing it as a percentage of personal disposable income. And we're down. You can see we had a peak around 2000 and another peak shortly thereafter, around maybe this is 2006 or so right here. And since then, it's been in fairly steady decline with some, bump up. So we're down to 1.7% here. This is the lowest, or tied for the lowest that's ever been as long as this data has been shown. So as a percentage of my personal disposable income, spending less and less of it on contributions to nonprofits and charitable causes. So we are losing the competition with consumerism right now. And part of the reason why I would contend is that our competition is doing a ton of marketing, a ton more marketing and advertising. And advertising, that word, if anything, is even more charged within our sector than marketing. Advertising, sometimes viewed as a dirty word, but look at your credit card statement, the last month, the last couple of months, and ask yourself a question of whether you've been influenced by marketing and whether it's driving your, monetary behavior, and particularly whether advertising has done so, right? So our competition, consumer brands and consumerism, kind of as a phenomenon, is doing a ton of advertising and doing an exceptional amount of marketing to change our opinions, to create needs, to motivate action, and ultimately motivate expense. And a lot of that is done through motivating feeling, craving, maybe, insecurity, desire, right? Excitement. But our competition is very effective at pushing our emotional buttons and motivating us to create these new needs and spend money in certain ways. And look, obviously Times Square, it's a striking visual. We don't all live in New York, but the research on brand exposure and advertising touch points, the latest that I saw is that the average US adult is exposed to something like 5,000 brand marketing or advertising touch points per day. And that's, from looking at a logo on a pair of, jeans that you might be putting on in the morning to, brands of products that are, in your own pantry in your kitchen to, actual digital ads you're seeing on your computer and on social media and so on and so forth. So that's like that number, 5,000 plus brand exposure touch points per day. That's the full gamut. But still, we are inundated. Right? We are essentially living in our own private versions of Times Square as we just move through the world every day, because we live in a society that is very consumer oriented, and consumer brands, they are experts at marketing. And so this is our competition for discretionary income. And it's not just that we are losing it. Part of it is because we're losing the race because we're not even running it. So this is data showing the relative size of the, by GDP within the United States. This is the one on the left of the nonprofit sector relative to for-profit companies. So what we're seeing on the left here, it's about 15x, right? For-profit sector is about 15x the GDP in total dollars of the nonprofit sector. But in terms of advertising investment, and this is the most conservative, I found several different analyses of this. Whole Whale and CausIQ did one. Dan Pallotta has one referenced in Uncharitable. There's an HBR article as well. So different ways. The most conservative analysis that I found, and this is one from Whole Whale and Cause IQ, found that 50x the advertising expenditure per year is made by for-profit companies versus nonprofit organizations. So it's 15 times, 1.5, the total GDP, size of the sector, but 50 times, 5.0, the amount of investment in marketing and advertising. So there's a more than 3x disparity there for this to even be a proportional kind of like fair matchup. For what it's worth, the analysis in Uncharitable, for those who read it, you may remember, was that it was over 100x discrepancy. And then I think Dan Pallotta took it a step further and said, if you remove universities and higher education, as well as hospitals and healthcare, which by far were the heaviest spenders on marketing and advertising, and you remove those two categories and just looked at the remaining, like human services, animal services, and other causes, it was 384 to 1. So 384 times as much marketing and advertising expenditure by the for-profit sector versus non-healthcare and non-higher education organizations in the nonprofit sector. So one might say, again, we're losing this race because we're not even running it. We aren't even really trying. And I'm sure somebody out there looks at this data and interprets it as, hey, look, we're spending so much less, but we're getting more bang for our buck, right? We're spending 1/50th and we're getting 1/15th. Isn't that somehow more efficient, right? You can kind of interpret this backwards. And even if there's some truth to that, I think it's back to the point around some amount of the population, a meaningful amount, they will contribute to good causes without needing to be driven or motivated or reminded, right? But so much larger of a percentage of the population does need it, right? And one might say this is why we're all here. This is why full-time fundraising roles and teams and fundraising as a profession, development as a discipline exists, is this belief that if we invest money, time, effort, expertise, we will motivate and drive further action, right? Marketing is a multiplier to do so even further at scale, particularly given the trend around more time and more money being spent online. So digital marketing scales that further. And right now, we are woefully underinvesting, even proportionally, to do so. So I would contend, charitable giving, we compete with consumerism, we compete for discretionary income, and we are currently losing that fight. But good marketing can level the playing field. And I would put an asterisk on this. So I get it that, even if we start doing digital marketing tomorrow, Aidan, you might say, we're never going to be Apple, right? We're never going to be Coca-Cola. And that's fine. I know the examples often thrown around here, Netflix and so forth. And these are some of the largest, the most successful, the most well-resourced companies in the world. You're a 3 million, regional organization, and you start doing digital marketing tomorrow, it's never going to compete with those. That's true, right? But there is so much opportunity, so much what must be low-hanging fruit to reach this whole swath of people who aren't even contributing at all right now. And part of the reason that I think we can all be very confident that we're nowhere near the ceiling is the ceiling was, in recent history, right? We can see 20 years ago, 2/3 of the United States population was contributing to charity, and now it's down to below half. That's very recent history. We can look back, and there was a much higher watermark. We are well below the watermark that we've all lived through, right? This isn't like a super pie in the sky. How far can we go? It's right there. We were all alive in that time, and no more. So I think the idea that there is so much possibility that we can drive further participation, we just need to invest and do some digital marketing to do so. So summing all that up, good marketing makes fundraising easier now and in the future. It's both for driving short-term action and long-term community building, brand building, nurturing. We do this by engaging people where they are, namely being online for digital marketing, expanding the pie, right? Reaching the people who are not currently participating in charitable contributions, and by leveling the playing field with our real competition, that being consumer brands and consumerism as a whole. And if all that's true, this is why marketing should be fundraising's best friend. All right. We're going to bring it home here and get a little bit tactical. And I'm just going to do a quick run through of a digital marketing donor acquisition funnel and talk a little bit about some ideas, how to think about messaging, how to think about the different steps of the process, how to think about some channels, how that might all fit in with just a slightly oversimplified donor acquisition funnel. So let's get tactical for the last little bit here. All right, so hopefully everyone's familiar with the idea of marketing funnel, but our goal is to get people from the top down to the bottom, right? And then after that, I think in the marketing world, this has started to be replaced by the idea of kind of a virtuous circle, right? You're re-engaging people. It's not just a one-way street, it's an ongoing one. But for initial acquisition, this is a little bit simpler of a visual, so we'll go with this, right? And at the top, we have the entire universe of everybody who might be a potential donor, right? And the first step of the process, right, is getting them to be aware. And then once they're aware, we have to get them engaged. We have to get them to care, right? And then at the very last step, we need to get them to act. Namely, we need to get them to donate, right? And one might split up this awareness step, into two steps. There's problem aware of, like, do you know about the issue, the cause, the challenges, and then brand aware is, do you know about our specific organization and why you should support us, specifically what we are doing, the good work we're doing. So I'd split awareness into actually problem aware and then brand aware. And at the bottom, you could say, similarly with action, there's maybe actions that don't require a donation. And then there's, of course, financial contribution as the tippy bottom, the final step of the donor acquisition process. All right, so let's break this down a little bit more, right? So and think about messaging at each of these steps. And it's important to think about, again, the journey of the individual, or think about yourself, right? When you're making a certain decision, particularly one of non-trivial size, maybe $100, few $100s, something that's not something you might just do reflexively, but you actually think about, right? So problem aware, in the case of a food bank, let's use this as an example, would be establishing that food insecurity exists in our community. That's not taken for granted. We need to make sure that the people in our community, potential supporters, potential donors, know that fact. So convincing them of that would be making them problem aware when they know and believe that food insecurity exists in our community. The next step, brand aware, this would be making them aware our organization has been on the front lines for 25 years, right? Establish credibility, establish your name, your brand, your organization exists and has been doing great work. And here's why, credibility. The next step would be, once that's been established, then maybe it's more specific about specific programs, right? Getting people to care, creating interest, creating more engagement, and establishing more specifically things like, we've helped over 100,000 school children avoid missing meals with our lunch program, right? Something more specific, story that you're painting here to lure people in further, get them more engaged. Then action, this would be get involved. Here's how you can help. And of course, more specifically, donate financially. So this is an example of step-by-step different messaging, one step at a time to move someone down this journey. Far too many organizations, they want the goal that's here at the bottom, right? And they want the dollar signs. And so if they're going to do marketing and particularly any paid advertising, immediately the leap is to say, all right, we want the bottom one. Let's give our pitch for money right now, immediately, with no other context or without having invested in these first steps of establishing awareness, brand aware, problem aware, then engagement, nurturing somebody, making them care before finally kind of going for the jugular and actually asking for money. So just skipping to the end is far less likely to be effective because you haven't invested the effort and time yet to make someone aware and to make them care. All right, so what might that look like in terms of channels, right? So that's the set of messaging. That's the story we're telling. That's what we're establishing one step at a time, kind of in our convincing argument for why someone should donate. What does that look like in terms of marketing channels? So at this top, right, establishing awareness, these are people who aren't in your database right now. They don't know who you are. This is people who are not yet aware. And so therefore, we're talking about advertising up top, right? For awareness, we're talking about social advertising, so Facebook, Instagram, potentially on X or LinkedIn, but targeted social ads in the newsfeed. It's display ads or video ads that follow people across the internet, right? From website to website. It could be animated display ads. It could be kind of pre-roll 15-second video ads that show up on CNN.com or ESPN.com or the Food Network, right? So display ads, video ads, it's called programmatic advertising, which goes around the rest of the web, basically any of the web that's not a walled garden of a specific social network. And it's search, right? It's paid ads at the top of search, or maybe if you're using the Google Ad Grant. I put an asterisk next to search ads here because part of the magic of search, depending on how you're using it, is it's the one channel that really can let you sort of skip the line, because even though you may not be, you are targeting people who may not know much about you, depending on what search terms you're able to bid on and get in front of, you might be able to get in front of people that are basically raising their hands and saying, I am ready right now to make a donation. Or I'm ready right now to get involved, right? Or in e-commerce, it's I'm ready right now to make a purchase. So depending on what search terms you're bidding on, that's maybe the one channel where really you can kind of skip the line, so to speak, and cut right to the end. But only with a very small subset of very specific search terms where people are explicitly raising their hand to do so. Otherwise, broadly, search is still kind of up here. You're reaching net new people and you're establishing awareness of your organization as an initial kind of acquisition to get them into the funnel to begin with. So advertising, it's paid advertising, digital advertising is what's most effective up here for awareness establishment. Next, we're moving down, so organic social. So organic social, really, the reach of this has been curtailed significantly in recent years. It's become more and more pay to play, particularly for reaching net new. So organic social is more reaching people who are already interested, right? They've made the choice to follow you. So they have to already be aware and they want to be further engaged. So organic social is primarily reaching people who have already said, yes, I want to hear more from you. Even then, the reach has been quite curtailed and only a small portion of your followers will actually see your content without paying. That's the unfortunate truth of how the business model of all these social networks has evolved. But organic social is a big part of that engagement. Once people have opted in to be following you, you can keep them in the loop. And then this set of channels, these are things that are great for engagement as well as moving people down into action. So both engagement and action, because these are targeting the people who already know you, right? If they're in your database and they've opted in, you can email them. Similarly, if they're in your database, they've opted in, you can send them text message marketing, SMS. You can retarget them. Retargeting ads would be you're only showing ads, you're following people around who have recently been to your website, right? Or you can do what's called CRM retargeting or email list match, which is targeting ads to people who are on your email list, right? So that's sometimes called CRM retargeting, whereas site retargeting would be people who have been to your website recently, right? So these are the people you're already warm. They're already warm. Obviously, there's varying degrees of that, of how recently have they engaged with you, how recently have they opened an email. But broadly, these are people who, they're in their system. You have their information. This is moving people from engagement and then down to driving action. And again, search ads, kind of depending on how you use them, maybe can let you cut the line. So these are examples of how these channels kind of fit in, and how different channels, just like before we saw different messaging, are better suited for activating different parts of this journey. But this is all digital marketing right here. And when thinking about it, the activity on the part of the donor, what is their side of this story, right? What are they doing? What do the actions look like? And then if you're thinking about it from a digital marketing lens, how can you use, what are the metrics or what are the activities you're tracking such that you can know, which per individual people, but more often like with segments or groups of people as they've moved through these steps, right? So someone who's problem aware based on the channels we just talked about, that probably means they're seeing ads, right? They're clicking ads, they're visiting your website, for the first time, right? That means they're now brand aware because they've come to your specific website, whether they're driven there by an ad or finding you in some other means. And then as we move kind of down from brand aware towards engagement, right? They're following on social. So that's the kind of first step on their part to do so, indicating that they're aware of your organization and somewhat engaged. And maybe now as we move deeper along, they're not just receiving your emails, they're opening them, right? So some kind of engagement with the communications that you're putting out to them. Maybe they're coming back to your website, right? Whether that's driven by an email or driven by a retargeting ad or whatever it might be, they're coming back to your site, maybe multiple times. Maybe they're making it deeper into the website, all right? So again, when thinking like a digital marketer, how can I create a segment? Who are the people who have made it to maybe my annual report page, right? Or some other page that's like several clicks into the website, because nobody's making it there by accident, right? If they're making it to several clicks into the website, they're going to these more niche pages of your website. That's obviously a more clear indication of intent. They're engaged. So there's some activities that show engagement. Engaging on social, right? If they're liking, clicking, engaging, commenting, sharing, right? So those are also good signs. And then think about action. What's an action that would indicate that they're ready to be activated, they're the next step along, but maybe haven't yet made a financial contribution or don't want to, right? One common one we see is sign a petition, right? So getting people, activate them in a different way. First, create the next step of psychological buy-in. It could also be something like subscribe to a newsletter, or maybe attend an event or a virtual event or something like that, particularly if it was maybe a free event or something like that. So signing a petition, subscribing, what's an action, a non-financial action, but again, increasing the engagement and then the psychological commitment on the part of this prospective donor. And then of course, the last step would be actually making that donation, or attending an event, purchasing a ticket to a gala or to some type of fundraiser. Obviously volunteering. Volunteering is another very obvious one of actions that create buy-in without financial cost. So one thing I'll say is, obviously at this point, this has been talking about digital marketing to drive an online donation, right? A purely online funnel. But this same set of activities and messaging and so forth can all be used in support of a more traditional major gifts process, or for that matter, a corporate partner process. And everything up until this point, this is essentially lead nurturing, right? In the B2B kind of for-profit business world, this would be demand gen or lead gen, and kind of using digital marketing at scale to bring someone along their journey until the point where they're ready to have a serious conversation. And so this can all be done in support of a traditional development process. And just down here, the non-financial action is then having that face-to-face meeting with the development team, and then making that major gift or sponsoring an event, right? And so this doesn't necessarily have to only be viewed as a pure digital journey that's completely separate from our normal process. This is supplemental to the major gifts high touch process that you may already be running, because all the time in between those in-person meetings, they could still be receiving content from email. They could still be kept, you could be staying top of mind with retargeting ads, or with social advertising, or with organic social posts. So all this digital marketing is still fully supportive of the traditional major gift process. All right, so bringing up the landing here. Hopefully I've established how and why good marketing makes fundraising easier now and in the future. Maybe a few more of you believe that marketing is good and feel armed with some talking points to make that case, either to your coworkers or to your boss or to your board. And hopefully some more of you agree why digital marketing is fundraising's best friend. Appreciate you all spending some time with me here this afternoon or morning, depending if you're in East Coast or West Coast. I think we have a couple minutes for questions, not much, but I'm here for it. Yeah, thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aidan. One of the things that struck me, and maybe you can take kind of a minute or two just to bring it all full circle. I think, you mentioned marketing is good, right? And you bring up so much data in the for-profit space. Obviously, these companies are doing something right when it comes to just the profitability numbers, things like that. When it comes to nonprofits, I think to some extent, when we talk about marketing, or doing a lot of these activities, especially in that funnel that you represented, whether it's organic social activities, whether it's advertising, things like that, it's like, but we're all about the mission, we're all about the impact. Like we don't want to do all of that stuff because it's all about the mission. And I think the point that you're making is, you're right, but we're actually like making the mission stronger. We're actually trying to elevate the impact, because we want to meet donors where they are. We want to engage them in the context where they're like, you know what, I'm passionate about this organization. I want to learn more. I want to engage. That's ultimately what you're talking about. It's not like necessarily something in a vacuum. It's equipping these nonprofit leaders with the tools, proven tools, where they can actually enhance their mission and grow generosity. So maybe kind of like talk a little bit about that in sort of a minute or two, because that's at least what stood out to me as what's
totally
powerful about
this. Well, one thing I might say is, like you said, we're all about the mission, we're all about the cause, we're all about the good works, right? The world is not better for good causes to abstain from marketing and advertising and self-promotional behavior, right? That is not making the world better. If anything, it's just creating more of a vacuum for consumerism to fill, right? So if we truly care about mission, about impact, then we should care about delivering more of it, reaching more people, reaching more supporters, reaching more of our target population for that matter that we're serving, right? And that requires promotion of the fact that we exist, of what we do, of our programs, of ways to help. It requires convincing and motivating people to support, to donate, and doing so at scale if we want to do more of it, particularly in this increasingly digital world that we live in. So I think that's maybe the point I would make first in response to that. The world is a better place if we do more marketing as nonprofits and good causes, not less.
Love it. Yeah, I think nonprofit orgs, like, humility is obviously a very common virtue, which is amazing. But at times it can feel a little uncomfortable when we start talking about self-promotion and about marketing efforts. And you're absolutely right. It's essential to spreading the impact that we want to spread. So
right, and totally get it about being uncomfortable or even unfamiliar. And it's just if we prioritize really the mission, the impact, and so forth, this is what we got to do. And or invest in the people who have expertise. Invest in hiring someone who does come from more of a marketing background. If that's a skill set maybe that one's organization doesn't currently have, does that inform we need to create a new role or hire for somebody a new staff position that does have that background and more of that skill set? Or for that matter, looking at other partners who can fill some of that void.
Absolutely. A partner like Feathr. And so once again, if you aren't familiar with Feathr's platform, certainly if a lot of these topics resonated with you, highly encourage you to check out Feathr. Great partner of Virtuous, and they're doing some outstanding work, providing a ton of value, a ton of expertise, as you just saw from Aidan's presentation. So definitely check them out.